سلام بچه‌ها، تریچم و خوش اومدین به ویدیو جدید. تو این ویدیو قرار بریم پارت بعدی استنلی پریبل رو بذاریم که یه بازی خیلی رومخی بود. این گویندش خیلی رومخه ولی خیلی فان بازیش. تو پارت‌های قبلی که کلا بازی از اول شروع شد، الان میریم ببینیم از سمت چپش بریم چی میشه. اگه پارت‌های قبلی رو ندیدید، اینور یا اینور کلیک کنید برید ببینید. یادتون نره حتما چنل رو سابسکرایب کنید، این ویدیو رو لایک کنید و بدون معطلی بزن بریم. Is never the end, is never the end, is never the end, is never the end. جمله معروف.
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
یکی دیگه تو پارتای قبلیش بود دیگه. خب تا همینجا اومدیم. یه همه رفتن و این داستانا، همه چیز مثل قبله. فکر کنم اون قبلی که گذاشتیمش یه پایانش بود، یعنی یه پایان جداش بود. خب سری قبلی از اون ور رفتیم، این دفعه بعد چپ میریم.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
بریم، اینجا چیزی نیست. خب
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his
پایین یا
boss's
بالا؟
office.
بالا. پایین میریم پایین.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley.
دوباره؟ این دوباره همونه.
Maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all. None of it made any logical
این دوباره
sense.
نیست.
And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see
دوباره
light when he looked down? Why did
بریم.
doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they
دوباره آیا؟
No,
دوباره؟
Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange.
نه
This
دیگه.
can't be real. And at last,
دوباره همونو. وای یا اول فصل.
and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he was still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed.
مواد زده یارو فکر کنم وسط محل کارش.
Why is that?
میگه این یه رویاست.
And he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment and my wife and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been.
الان چی شد یعنی؟
My life is normal.
زندگی من معمولیه. من معمولیم.
Everything will be fine.
همه چیز خوبه.
I am okay.
من خوبم.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
گفتش که داد میزنه، میگه که من وجود دارم. یکی به من بگه من وجود دارم، من واقعیم.
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal.
من نفهمیدم چی شد.
I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her.
یعنی ما بیهوش شدیم، همش خواب بود.
She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Wow. Thank you. ممنون.
Already this was uncomfortable, and Stanley decided that as soon as he found a new space he felt safe in, that he would never leave it again in his life.
از اول نیست، یه چیزی قراره اینجا تغییر کنه. حرفاش فرق میکنه. left. میریم همین ور ببینیم.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office.
این دفعه بریم بالا.
Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
اینجا جدیده.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication.
اینجا احتمالاً اتاق مدیر و این چیزاست.
Unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number.
میشه بریم زیر میز؟
2-8-4-5. But of course,
نه.
Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
آخ کدو اینجا بهمون گفت، من نفهمیدم.
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs, trying to input anything on the device.
آره
was
2845 28 آخ اشتباه زدم. 2-8-4-5 آره.
By simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
اوکی بذار ببینیم چیه این بر. هیچی نیست. مطمئن اینجا کارخونه است، اینجا معلوم نیست چی تولید میکنن.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read
Mind Control Facility. کنترل ذهن.
Lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped.
بله این همون اتاق است که اون سری اونجا بودیم. کجا بود؟ اونجا بود. اون بالا.
The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
بریم ببینیم. گیر کرد. بریم ببینیم به کجا میرسه.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe it couldn't.
Fired.
Had Stanley really been
آتیش گرفته یه همچین چیزی.
Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof.
اتاق
The
کنترل.
heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
واو. مایند کنترل. سیستم آف یا آن. چی شد؟
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over?
تموم شده؟
Yes. He had won. He had
میگه
defeated the machine.
تموم شده؟
Unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away.
هیچی من نمیبینم.
And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone?
آها
Had he been
پایین رو باید
freed
نگاه
from the
کرد.
machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized
الان یعنی خاموشش
it mattered
کردیم؟
to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do.
چقدر طولش میدی؟ ما میخوایم بریم از اینجا.
Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps
من
the only
نفهمیدم.
thing worth knowing.
اه؟
Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin. The feeling of liberation.
پشت سرتو نگاه کن من ببینم
and
چیه.
possibility of the
داستان
new
چی
path
بود؟
before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
و استنلی خوشحال بود. چی بگم؟ خب اوکی تاریک تره نه؟ آره تغییر کرده.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
واو الان چیکار کنیم یعنی؟
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Yes, truly a room worth admiring, but eager to get back to business.
این دفعه
Stanley
مستقیم
took the
میریم.
first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
اوه
But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control
Oh.
of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death. Good job, Stanley. Everyone thinks you are very powerful.
مردیم با کشتن خودمون.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room to check on his
Nah.
coworkers. He never functioned well by himself.
همه چی از اول شروع شده.
Support and guidance from others, so the thought of total solitude was terrifying to him.
No.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he
نه
entered the door on his left.
لعنت به این بازی. بریم ببینیم من دوباره خودمو
Yes,
میکشم.
this room, but eager to get back to business 5 years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can... But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death. Good job, Stanley. Everyone thinks you are very powerful.
همه فکر میکنن تو خیلی قدرتمندی. لعنتی رد دادم. نمیشه. فایده نداره.